welcome everybody. This is our February update meeting. We have tons of updates for you, and of course, you'll have access to the slide deck, which will be full of links and resources that you can take back, review on your own time, share with your leadership teams, whatever you feel like is necessary. Here's the agenda. So we have a lot going on. Mike Lathis is here. He's going to kick us off with legislative updates. Cindy's here. She's got a ton of state and federal programs and state assessment updates. Dr. Carolina Paul is here. She's going to be talking about state and federal programs. We have a new program for support around PLCs, which I think you might have heard about before, but we have both Nathan and Nakia here to talk a little bit about that and what's coming next. Tons of literacy updates, math, science, social studies, lots of upcoming opportunities, and a little bit around dyslexia, what's happening with that legislation too. So we're going to get started because that's a pretty big agenda. Mike, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I can kick us off. I'm going to try and be quick to run through this. There's a lot of information, a lot of updates that I have, but I don't want to get too in the weeds on things. And to be quite honest, from a curriculum standpoint, there isn't much going on in the way of actual policy, at least at the state level. Obviously, a lot of that is going to change at the federal level, but I'll get in that towards the end. Very quickly, we finally have our committee chairs and committee members in the House for the House Education Policy Committee, as well as the Appropriations Subcommittee. Good news for Wayne County on the policy committee is that on the Republican side we have the majority vice chair, Rep. Linting, who's a new rep from downriver, on that committee. As well, on the Democratic side, we have, I think, three members on that committee, Reps. Colazar, Weiss, and Burns. So good representation for Wayne County on that policy committee. They have yet, in both the House and the Senate Education Committee policy committees have yet to meet or work on any substantive policy for the first month and a half, almost 2 months of the year. Um, from appropriations perspective in the House, it is not very good from the person who is chairing the committee, who's Tim Kelly from kind of the west middle part of the state, they're the western southern part of the state-ish. Um, he is very pro voucher, very. I mean, he said to me the other day that he doesn't believe that schools should be doing anything related to mental health for students in schools. So we are, when his budget comes out, I mean, we're not going to like what's in his budget. I mean, I can just tell you that right now. From the perspective of some of the categoricals and different grant fundings that we receive, that we're typically used to. Sorry, let me sound this call. That we're used to receiving. I think from his perspective, things go through the foundation allowance, but at the same time, I think he doesn't necessarily think that we're underfunded. We'll have to see what his budget brings. But the governor did release her budget about 2 weeks ago. Really, I mean, the what I've told all the superintendents in our districts is that there's probably only two or three things that I would take from this budget related to from the governor, from what the governor wants, and that is the $10,000 per pupil foundation allowance and a 4.1% increase in the weights. The rest of it is not necessarily a bad budget. I just don't believe that the House Republicans are going to be paying much attention to what the governor wants, and which is also going to likely push this budget into the September timeframe. The speaker's office, his staff has already indicated that July 1st is probably not likely, and we should be looking at September. My response to the speaker's team was that that's if hopefully we don't go down that route, but if they do, that they should at least pass kind of a skinny budget
Mm.
that would provide us with an actual, with a foundation allowance, and an increase in the weight, so the districts can kind of at least produce budgets that will match what the state will be providing. So we'll have to see what comes from that. Um, we're watching a number of different issues related to earned sick time, as well as the roads funding issue. Roads funding, they there are a couple different proposals going around from the speaker's office to the governor, and both of them try to get the sales tax on gas strictly for roads. Obviously, the school aid fund has a piece of that. And in order to get us out of that, we would need somewhere around $800 million in ongoing funding every single year to backfill that. And so there's not very serious conversations that I think both sides are having right now. I don't necessarily think that we get an actual roads funding deal in place, but we're involved just from the simple fact that they're trying to mess around with the funding that goes directly into the school aid fund. On the earned sick time piece, we are monitoring that just from a standpoint of from an HR perspective, obviously, in terms of the changes that will hopefully be made from the referendum that would go into effect this Friday. If the House and Senate don't come to an agreement and pass some more modified changes that either the House or Senate versions would be more palatable from our perspective. So we'll have to see. I expect a late session night tomorrow to try and get that done if they're able to. Um, the I went through the budget. There's a few different pieces in there that we are concerned about. One just to give everyone's heads up on is the 31AA, which deals with school safety and mental health. There's new boilerplate in that budget that requires districts to agree to a state investigation if there were to be a mass casualty event in the district. That has both legal and insurance implications that we need to be very careful about and very thoughtful as we read through this language. So just FYI, that there's a change in there, as well as the fact that it's only funded at $150 million, and not what districts have been accustomed to, which is around the $300 million range. As I mentioned previously, the biggest changes that we're going to see are at the federal level. It sounds like you guys are going to hear about a little bit about some federal programs a little bit later. But we, what we've seen from the beginning or the first 3 weeks, first 4 weeks of the new Trump administration is that they have done every single thing that they've said that they were going to do. Um, you've seen a number of different executive orders from a funding freeze for grant programs to an executive order on Title IX, an executive order on school choice, an executive order on DEI, and that was followed closely last week with a dear colleague letter, as well as what I'm told is upcoming executive order on kind of the administration's attempt to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. The executive office cannot dismantle a department, but what it can do is instruct the current department to essentially issue, within 90 days, issue a legislative plan for how you could dismantle the department and place the different funding aspects in different federal agencies. For example, I mean, I don't know if you guys saw any of the initial hearing for the potential incoming Secretary of Education, but she suggested that all IDEA funding could be go over to DHHS. So gonna have to watch that closely. That has to take an act of Congress, obviously. I think what I will say is, and I think we saw this the last couple of years, where in Michigan we had a Democratic trifecta. It doesn't always work as seamlessly and easy as you think it will. There's definitely differing of opinions, even though they are from the same party. I think you're already starting to see that in Congress with kind of the looming budget battle happening between the Senate, the House, and the executive office, kind of chiming in there earlier today too. One quick thing before we leave on the executive orders is the dear colleague letter and their threat of removing all DEI programs is very real. I think I've told all of our HR folks in the county a couple weeks ago that I envision the department or the federal government basically creating a form where districts have to affirm that they do not have any of these programs as part of their programming in order to receive federal funding. Um, I know that our districts are currently taking a look at what they have in terms of DEI programs, but we also await really further clarity on the extent to which we need to take a look at programming. For example, during the hearing for the incoming Secretary of Education, a question was asked if an African American history class would be considered DEI, and she didn't know. So there's going to become a time very very quickly where those programs are going to have to be evaluated and and really have to see what will need to be changed in order for districts and ISDs throughout the state, throughout the country, to continue to be able to receive federal funding. Um, and as I've said all along, and a lot of this is that a lot of what this means is that lawyers are going to be making a lot of money, really on every single thing you think of. Also makes me wish actually went to law school after taking the LSAT, but we're here now. Um, the final piece, a couple final pieces are really what I'm very concerned about the federal budget and really how it relates to what we are going to be asking for the state budget, how those two are interact is obviously you've heard of different cuts coming, right? There's talk about 4.5 trillion dollar or so trillion, excuse me, yeah, trillion tax cuts. They intend on cutting a large portion of that from the existing federal budget. Obviously, you hear a lot about what that Doge is and isn't doing. I know that there was claims that they had cut $1 billion in research funding from the U.S. Department of Education last week. Um, I guess part of that is true, and part of it isn't, in the sense that there are multiple payments from within grants that are set up. You don't wait until the work is done. So while certain things might add up to a certain number, that doesn't necessarily mean that all of that money is still there. But from a budget perspective, I'm hearing another, from in terms of title funding and other areas within the Department of Education, we're hearing at least $1 billion in cuts coming down in reconciliation and the budget process. So from our perspective and what I have shared with the governor's office, with legislators thus far, is that if we take a 25% cut in title funding at the federal level, that any of those cuts, the current funding that we have at the state level needs to backfill any cuts coming from the federal level. So that's our position in Wayne County. We're going to maintain that position. I'm also very concerned with cuts to Medicaid. The administration or the president has signaled that he is not going to make any cuts to Medicaid or Social Security, but from a number of different people that have analyzed the budget and what they're currently looking at cuts, they have all indicated that there is no way that they can make the cuts that they're talking about, as well as the tax cuts that they're talking about, without touching Medicaid and Social Security. So obviously the Medicaid piece is a very important topic for schools, important funding aspect for schools for the services that they provide. Unfortunately, if Medicaid is cut, you're probably going to see states roll back the support for schools in an attempt to make sure that everyday kind of the general public continues to maintain access to that funding or of what's left. So there's a lot of questions at the federal level. Obviously, most of this, even when we do get even when we do get an executive order, it's taking a couple days to actually fully understand it, as they don't really, they give the direct expectation, but it's very, very broad, and there's no direction in a lot of this. So we're all just kind of playing catch up. We're waiting for explicit directives. Obviously, our schools are always going to follow the law, with a focus of making sure our kids, we're providing an education to our kids and ensuring that their health, safety, and wellness are remain intact. Um, Finally, just as a heads up, there is a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit on stemming from Section 504 or 504 plans that is kind of quickly going through the federal court system. Sounds like this is something that could end up in the U.S. Supreme Court at some point. There's excuse me, 13 or 14 states that have signed on to this lawsuit that are basically saying that Section 504 is unconstitutional, is coercive, untethered to the federal interest in disability, and unfairly retroactive. And they're asking for permanent injunctive relief to essentially eliminate 504. So that would be a huge that would have a huge impact on education throughout the country, and obviously all of those kids who don't have an IEP in place but do need some sort of additional services. So that's more of a heads up. But again, you know all of the things that we're concerned about have kind of now switched from being at the state level and are squarely on the shoulders of the federal level. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat right now.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Sorry, this is Stacy. I'm sorry. Something
ahead,
just popped
Stacy.
in my head. When we're talking about backfilling potentially the 25%, would that
Mhm.
be probably section 31A? Should we be conservative, or are we anticipating the state giving us an increased allotment there?
I mean, it all depends, right? So I think right now we have about anywhere from $2 to $3 billion to work with. About 1 to 2 billion of it actually being ongoing funding. Um, if depending, I mean, we need to match those cuts dollar for dollar. So if depending on how it, I mean, it's a hard question to answer, Stacy, because it all depends on how deep the federal cuts are. If the federal cuts are as deep as we worry they could be, then that's going to eat up a lot of the available funding at the state level. And honestly, at that point, it becomes to do we backfill that money or do we not? Or do we only backfill part of it and make sure other aspects are funded? It's a tough question because and we just don't know until we actually see on paper exactly where they're going to cut, how much, and how much they're going to cut. But it is possible that yes, 31AA could be impacted if there are massive cuts at the federal level.
Mike, you mentioned something about the 504s. I mean, how much ground do you think it's going to have much impact? When do we think this is going to go into effect if this does go through? Because
Yeah,
man, that's going to have a huge impact.
it's going to have a huge impact. I mean, given the current environment we're in, Jason, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually goes and moves forward. Just given, knowing what the Supreme Court looks like, also knowing, and to be quite honest with you, if you guys go take a look at the AASA's blog where they mention this, they really don't take a position on it, but are quick to point out that Section 504 is an unfunded mandate. So it'll be interesting to see how much fight is there. To be quite honest with you, I am surprised that we don't have special ed parents from all over the country already having discussions in Washington, D.C. about concerns about not only cutting the funding, but for example, taking essentially the Office of Civil Rights within U.S. Department of Education away and placing the whole IDEA program into Health and Human Services. So I don't know. I don't know on timing because I'm not entirely familiar with the federal court system and how fast it could move. I don't think it would be this year or this school year. But it's something that just popped up on our radar, and we'll make sure to follow it, and hopefully, Jason, I can get some better timing perspective soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like if anybody has any further questions, they can contact you, right?
Yep, absolutely. As always, feel free to reach out either by phone or email.
Thank you.
Thank-
Thanks, Mike, for the update. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that we will remain by your side as changes occur, and we will continue to advocate on behalf of yourself and your students, and of course get information out as soon as it goes public as well. So we have been on the press releases, reading them every single day. As you know, that there are many changes and right now that's potential changes. And so I think we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern, but also of course wanting to be proactive, but knowing that it's a wait and see game. So we will get that information to you as soon as we get it as well. And we just want to make sure we're giving you good and accurate information. And thinking around attendance, we did have a newly added professional learning as well. We want to make sure that, we know that chronic absenteeism really impacts student success and community well-being. So we want to make it a critical area for intervention. And aligned with an MTSS framework, we've offered a new 2-part learning series that really explores the holistic strategies of addressing attendance by identifying the root causes of attendance challenges with specific demographics. So the next 2 focus areas that we're going to be leaning into are special education and also early childhood. So on 3/4/2025, we're going to be talking about special education. And then when we get into our 4/7 date, we're going to be talking a little bit about early childhood, because when we look at the demographics that are chronically absent, these are 2 of the areas that seem to be affected by chronic absenteeism. So we're going to be talking a little bit about some tiered strategies, how to improve attendance, and we just want to make sure that you have the information for your teams if you wanted to attend. Thanks very much, everyone, and we'll continue again to keep you actively updated on any changes that are coming down the pipeline for Title I, 31A, and so on.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Nakia Irby, Educational Improvement Consultant. For those who don't know me, I wanted to take the opportunity to just share again, along with my colleague Nathan Spencer and I, we are offering a brand new series here at RESA around reinvigorating your PLCs. And so several of you on the call have already reached out. We've had some one-on-one conversations. We've had some group conversations with some of you. And we would like for you to take advantage of this. We are currently in the process now of just making sure we know numbers from everyone, but it appears right now that we still have room. If there are some who have not had an opportunity to reach out to Nathan and myself, please do that so that we can talk with you about what the structure of the program is and help you register your teams if that's what you're interested in. The program starts this summer with 3 summer dates for our leaders and our teacher leaders, June 16th, 17th, and 18th, with an administration day on June 20th. We will also have 2 mid-year days that will happen throughout the next school year, 25-26. And right now we're looking at our professional learning day that has traditionally been November 4th and possibly November 3rd. So we have those opportunities and those dates set. Some of the questions that came up in our information sessions and in our conversation with other districts are, if we are not able to participate in this initial training for the summer, can we still be involved? We would encourage you to still reach out to Nathan and myself. If we need to, we can look at possibly how the dates might shift for a second cohort. But the dates that are already published are the ones that we're going with for those that have already made their interest known. You will be contacted soon with the registration link. This is not an offering that you're going to find in our course catalog. So you have to go through Nathan and myself in order to actually register. And we have to make sure that you are understanding what the program is, since it is a 2-year program, and that we are looking for your commitment. The idea is that we would have teams. We've had several individuals from some of your districts reach out to us, and even though we're not turning them away, we know that the program is going to be more enriching for them if they have someone on their team that's working along with them, but specifically a leader needs to be involved, just because we're not just talking about what you're doing during the PLC, but we're also talking about how you are structuring them in your district. So if that's an opportunity that you hadn't had a chance to reach out to us about, we're hoping that you will do that. On the next slide, if you want to learn more, we have our SMORE. Nathan, if you want to drop that link in the chat for them, you can read and find out more about the program itself if you haven't had an opportunity yet. And then please reach out to Nathan or myself if you're interested in registering, and we can get you going on that regard. There is a question that has popped up in the chat. Did RESA determine a way to invoice separate years so we can grant fund this? We cannot pay that up front. Absolutely, Stacy, if you reach out to me, then we can get you going and let you all know how we can make that happen. Any districts that are using grant funds, we can talk to you about how that might work for you, so that we can get you all squared away. But we definitely need to know that you are trying to be in the program, because we are trying to finalize our materials and get everything going for this year. What other questions might there be, or anything you want to add, Nathan?
I would just say that when you get these slides, in the speaker notes for both the last slides you just saw on this slide are going to be links to the SMORE that Nakia just mentioned, and I dropped the link to in the chat, as well as to a larger breakdown of what's happening in the 2-year program.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And I just wanted to bring this back out again to all of you. Again, my name is Nathan Spencer. I'm a science ed consultant here at Wayne County RESA, and we are starting this coming summer cohort 2 of our Master Science Teacher Fellowship. And the goal here is that we are supporting science teachers to grow in their instructional practices, to support students, to meet the really high expectation of the Michigan Science Standards, aka the Next Generation Science Standards, one and the same. And so what you see on the slide, and what Mary Treese just dropped in the chat, is a link to our flyer. It has a lot of information on it. And something really important to note is that for the teachers that you might share this with, we have some application deadlines. So there's an application process in order for teachers to participate in the 3-year opportunity to learn and grow alongside other science teaching peers from 3rd grade all the way through high school. And the online applications, you can find the link on the SMORE that Mary shared in the chat. The date for the initial online application is March 30th. That's the final date. We'll be accepting those. And then once I receive that, the prospective fellows will receive, they'll have to do an essay. And there's a criterion-based rubric that will be used to evaluate that, amongst some other things. There's also a requirement for at least for 2 references, very specific references that are shared in the flyer. Could you hit the slide, please, Anna? Thank you. So what kind of instructional practices will teachers be working on? I really want to lift this. So the goal in the fellowship, what teachers will be working on for 3 years, and it's going to take 3 years to get good at this, is that we're going to work to improve all of our students' written and spoken science explanations, arguments, and models. So when we think about this, it means that the teachers involved in this will have to work on their abilities to facilitate whole group discourse, small group discourse, small group work, looking closely at scientific models, and understanding what students do and don't understand from that, and how that improves determines next instructional steps. there's a lot to all of this. And so it's a pretty in-depth workshop. If you could hit one more slide for me, please. Thank you, Anna. Something to note, even if you've already adopted in your district what might be considered a high quality curriculum resource. So for example, OpenSciEd or any resource that is on EdReports or the Next Gen Science website is considered high quality. Even with that high quality curriculum, it requires a lot of effort and a shift in our understanding of classroom practice in order to implement those with fidelity or as intended. And what we've noticed over time is that this takes a lot of cooperative effort, and that's what this program does. It helps teachers work with other science teaching peers to get really close into these practices. So the fellowship is comprised of a series of workshops that are devoted to really focusing on instructional practices, book studies that are essential to help fellows understand these practices, fellowship meetings where we're sharing our practice with our peers and learning some new stuff. And then a couple more things I'll just mention really quickly: instructional coaching and job embedded professional learning, such as learning labs and classroom learning labs and what we call studio days, are really in fact impactful processes. So for example, each fellow will engage in two instructional coaching cycles per year that are very specific towards looking at instructional practices through their curriculum resource and reflecting on that practice, right? So for example, an educator may really want to work on their facilitation of whole group consensus discussions, okay? And so we'll focus on that specific practice through these instructional coaching cycles using classroom video and reflective practices. The job embedded professional learning experiences, the classroom learning labs. If you've never experienced one before, it's a fantastic opportunity to have a group of folks together, to watch someone engage students in actual practice and have reflective conversations that grow the entire group together. So we'll be doing this for 3 full years. It's an excellent opportunity. We have about 13 to 15 people who right now have applied. We're looking for many more to apply. And we're only accepting 10, but the more that apply, the bigger the pool is. The bigger bang for the buck, the more districts across the county that we can bring into this. So if there are any questions at all, please email me. I'll get back to you right away. And thank you.
Cindy Tarskevich. I have state assessment updates, and it seems like a lot of information, but I'll go through the slides pretty quickly. I'm just sharing resources here and links. I've been pulling out the documents as they're released from the state. So the manuals for PSAT and SAT have just been released. The MSTEP test administration manual is released. So these are just linked here for you as a resource. I'm not going to go through all of these, just for you. Next slide. I do want to bring up some important dates and some of the systems that you are working with currently. Just a reminder that pre-ID is open and you're continuing to clean up pre-ID. You're working with your student information system, which is tied to MSDS. Student information is tied to MSDS, which ties to OEAA. So you have to make sure whatever you're cleaning up in your student information system, you're also cleaning up in MSDS. MSDS is what they're pulling into OEAA, and that's what they're going to use for accountability data. OEAA will be pulled into DRC. DRC is set to open on 2/21, and that is when you will then create your test sessions, mark your accommodations, and print your test tickets. So that is coming up in a couple days. They no longer do the online sessions in OEAA. So that will all be done in DRC on the 21st. So those are the data systems for MSTEP and MyAccess. Next slide. Your PSAT and SAT data systems are a little bit different. You're still working in OEAA with your pre-ID. You're continuing to clean that up with your student information system and SIS as students enroll and drop. You did your supports and accommodations. Those were added in SSD that closed on the 18th yesterday. You have access to the State Data Management System, SDMS, that opens on 2/19. That is where they will pull in all your students' supports and accommodations from SSD, and you will waive or force match accommodations in your SDMS. Test Day Toolkit opened on 2/3. So they will then take anything from OEAA and anything from SDMS and pull it into Test Day Toolkit. Okay, all of that information will start populating, all of your student names will start populating into Test Day Toolkit, it should be starting populating today. Between today and the 21st, all of those names will start coming in. If you are having issues and student names are not appearing, make sure you're checking State Data Management System to make sure that you're force matching accommodations. Last year they had issues with students not showing up from SSD because their accommodations were force matched in SDMS. So if you're seeing students not there, go check SDMS and force match accommodations there. And then it will take 1 day to pull into Test Day Toolkit after a pull, and then 2 days from SDMS. And then your Blue Book, you can start doing those digital readiness checks on March 24th. Next slide. Some new items I'm just going to talk through. MSTEP passage-based writing responses. They will be AI scored this year. They will not be read by a human reader and scored. Your SAT essay will also be an AI scored. They're not going to do a human reader. Your MSTEP test administrator manual is now, Stacey in the chat. Your MSTEP test administrator manual is now a one manual for all grade levels. So you will now no longer see a specific grade level on the cover. It's one for all grade levels. Students can use Bluetooth headphones for the listening section of MSTEP. And the district test coordinator and the primary school test coordinator listed in the EEM, they can now add additional test coordinators in the Test Day Toolkit to help with test activities on test day or prior to test day. So those are some new items. I'm going to go through a couple more new items. Next slide. The whole platform for MSTEP testing has changed. You can see the old version on the left. The enhanced technology tools were throughout the screen. On the right, all of the tools are all now at the top. So it will look different for the students when they test. The online tools training link is linked at the bottom in case you want students to practice with the new platform to see the tools and how they're laid out differently this year. So it's not a new experience for them when they go on for testing, but just to see the old version of what the test used to look like and what they're going to see this year. The reading passages are going to look the same. It's just the tools and the layout of the tools. Okay, so that's new this year. Next slide.
Cindy, we have a couple of questions and comments in the chat. Who can update personnel in the EEM?
You have an authorized user for the EEM, and if you send me an email, I can send you that information on how to get access or how to look that up in the EEM.
Awesome. And then there's just a comment wondering if there's been any conversation about the validity and reliability of AI assessing that work, especially for our bilingual and special needs populations.
We did not get into depth about that. So it was just released at our last meeting in, God, was that December? We have another meeting coming up in March, so we'll probably get into more of that conversation. But no, I'll make sure to bring that up at our meeting in March.
Thank you.
So for your MSTEP supports and accommodations, they did update the tracking resource sheet. You can see here, I have it linked at the bottom. I linked some other resource sheets there also, but the main resource tracking sheet is there. It's not mandatory. It's not required to use. It's just a guidance sheet. You can see at the bottom, the Excel spreadsheet, the one I have the arrow to, they have different tabs so you can track who is getting accommodations, who is getting supports by the different assessment. And then they have all of the supports and accommodations listed and color coded. So you can break down, put all your student names there with their UICs. That way, when you're going into DRC to mark accommodations and supports, you have one Excel sheet, one document, and one person is entering them into DRC, and they're all listed and saved. So that's a new update for supports and accommodations. Next slide. Some accommodation changes for PSAT and SAT. There were some name changes. I think I mentioned this, but extended time is now called up to extended time. Annotation is now called highlighting and notes. The SSD coordinator can now transfer students and accommodations from the prior school right in SSD online. They no longer have to contact the help desk. Embedded speech, the text-to-speech is embedded right into the Blue Book app. You do not need the floating accessibility menu in Chromebook. With the extended time, students have to use up to the standard time, but once the standard time has elapsed, a next button will then appear, and then they can move through the test, as long as they've used up to at least the standard time. There's a full link down there for the SSD accommodation updates for more information, but those are the highlights. Next slide. There is a PSAT and SAT training dashboard for test coordinators. So I have the link there. That required training is coming available March 10th for your proctors and test coordinators. Again, the link there to sign in to get the required training is there. There is a dashboard guide to that online training. The dashboard for that online training, test coordinators can track which staff have completed the training, and they can also add any in-person training that maybe your hall monitors did or your room monitors attended, since that's not required. You can add that into the dashboard just to track any training that has occurred, but it will track once someone has logged in to do that required training from College Board. I have it linked there in the dashboard guide also. Next slide. They have 2 support specialists this year. So Meredith is back this year. Meredith McKelvey is back this year. And then Natalia Russell, their emails are listed there. They will have office hours each Wednesday from 2 to 3. You can join right there. In the link. Thank you. Next slide. This is not new, but just a reminder that Big Futures and Connections that will be done, students during the digital readiness check for PSAT 10 and SAT. Students will be asked to join into Big Futures and the Connections program. They will be asked to share student information. So parents do have to be given the opportunity to opt their student out. You have to send home some information to opt them out of Big Futures and the Connection program. This is not to opt them out of testing. So you want to make sure whatever you're sending home, it's clear that they're just opting out of Big Futures and the Connections program. So MDE has an opt-out form, which I linked at the bottom. It's available in Arabic and Spanish translations if you need it. But you're welcome to send any form or any type of communication you have, as long as you send something. It's an opt-out, so you don't need to, if you don't get it back, it's just assumed that they're not opting out. There's a whole parental consent guidance document. If you want to read it, I also have linked there, but something does have to be sent home before testing. Next slide. The ACT Work Keys update. There's just some updates there. The manual is out. They have translated test directions. There's a webinar on demand. Again, they added that additional test day, so you can pick between March 27th or April 12th. You cannot do both test days. You have to pick one. The translated test directions are no longer orderable. You have to download them. That's why I have them down linked below. Your agreements are no longer in the manual. You have to go online to the ACT Michigan website. Accommodation materials and Spanish test booklets have to be ordered in OEAA. And they're going to have an aggregate work keys file that will now be available in OEAA after testing. Another big thing that we're gonna see, that WorkKeys is not going away. It's required under legislation, but they are gonna go out for bid for an online assessment. So they do expect an online WorkKeys assessment for next spring, 2026. Next slide. Their graduation rate data for 23-24 was released. It is still in preview mode and embargoed, so you do have to be logged in to see the data. You go to K through 12 on My School Data Portal, then go to Students, then go to the tab Grad Dropout Rate and fill in the filters. Again, you have to be logged in and have access to preview data. If you need help with your login, please contact me and I can assist. Next slide. Atlas, we are having 2 Atlas webinars. The Atlas Wayne Risa Consortium contract is up for renewal in the next couple months. We'll be sending out surveys and links, excuse me, for those who want to renew their contract or end their contract, or anyone who wants to join into the RISA Consortium contract. So the 24-25 rate for districts in the consortium was $2.69 per student. That price adjusts based on the number in the consortium. So we have a webinar coming up March 12th at 1 to 2 for any current districts, and they'll just go over any Q&A, any updates. And then March 13th from 10 to 11, that will be an overview for any new districts that want to join. So I have the link there if you want to register and pick which, if you're a new district or a current district, and then I will send links out based on that registration. Next slide. And then again, the Spring Student Voice Survey is coming up. There are 4 administration windows that I have shown at the bottom. Again, this is a free student voice perception survey. If we talk about our multiple measures of data, we have often a lot of demographic, student learning data and school process data. A lot of times schools are missing that perception data. So this is a chance to get a free perception survey. They have the student, parent, and educator voice surveys. They take 10 minutes. It covers the domains of student engagement, belonging, and social emotional learning. You get district and school level reports, and they're designed for grades 5 through 12. I have links there if you want to review the survey questions. There's an FAQ document and a whole brochure for information. But the link to register is linked there. Kent ISD will contact you back and then let you pick which window you would like to secure for administering the perception survey. Anything else? That's it. Thank you.
We do have one question in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and read it. The initial order delivery is during the county spring break. If the date change was not toggled to the later date in the OEAA, whom can we contact?
Just email me, Stacy, and then we'll email Tina together. We can see if we can get it changed.
I have a feeling there might be others like that.
Yeah, let me email Tina then right away and see what she says.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kate Pearson. I'm the Essential Elements Consultant in the Special Education Department. Yeah, for special education, we wanted to put together some resources specifically for curriculum surrounding sex education. We know this is a really important topic. This is also a topic that can be very sensitive, especially for parents and educators. So myself and Jamie Ethorn, the school health consultant, we put together some resources just so that there was a list that you guys could go to with curriculums surrounding sex education for students with disabilities. So some of these have great resources. A few of them are free. Some of them you do have to pay for, but there are important sex education curriculums that really service and support the needs of our students with special needs, like Flash, Circles. These are all very common ones, but there's also different resources and visuals throughout this list. So we wanted to provide you this just because we know we get a lot of questions surrounding sex education and how to go about it for students with mild, moderate, and significant disabilities.
Hi, I'm Carrie Fromm. I'm one of the literacy consultants, and I just wanted to share a couple of pieces of information. Can you go to the next slide? First of all, we have secured our dates for 2025 and 26 school year UFly training. So if you are interested in doing any of the, having any of your staff participate in the initial 2-day foundational training, we have 2 dates in August and then a session in September. If you know that you're going to be sending a large group of teachers, if you could reach out to me, that would be great, because we want to make sure that we have space for anybody in Wayne County that wants to participate in this foundational training. The cost breakdowns are all right there. We are offering a 1-day refinement training. This is for people who have already participated in the 2-day foundational training. This will go over more in-depth assessment and some of the issues that people come up with after they've taught it for 6 months to a year. The other thing we want to let you know about is that we are able to offer a couple of free webinars to you all through UFly. One is how to use UFly for intervention. So this is going to be a virtual half day. Anybody who has participated in our UFly training will get this code to access this training. It is done by the people at the University of Florida. It's not our team. It's done by them. And so if you have people that are thinking, have been trained, but you want to think about intervention, it's a great thing to come. It'd be great for curriculum directors, principals as well. The other thing we will do is a half-day virtual for administrators and coaches about how do you support UFly implementation. And again, that will be a half-day in service. It will be virtual. And the dates are both right there. We will offer these intervention and administrator ones later in the year as well, after we get all the summer and fall training done. Can you go to the next slide, please? We do want to let you know that if you are still looking for foundational training this school year, we do have 24 spots available in our April 28th and 29th group. So if that is of interest to you, please note that, and the registration is open. If you have any issues, please let me know. Next slide, please. So our elementaries in Wayne County through the Literacy Learning Network all received a bag of professional learning materials. And inside there are lots of professional resources, but they're not just resources. We've also provided learning opportunities to go along with them. So coming up, we are doing a book study about the 8 paradoxes of great leadership. This will be run by our leadership consultants, and it's part of the Elementary Principal Network. And so all of your principals should have received emails about how to come and how to sign up. There will be other learning opportunities that are in June and August. All of them can be found in our catalog. They're all around the different books that were part of the materials that we provided. Next slide, please. And then lastly, we wanted to share with you around student-centered coaching. Next year, we're going to be offering a 4-day workshop with Diane Sweeney and Julie Steele, who are authors in the series about student-centered coaching. We've been doing a book study with them this year, and it's been very well received by our coaches. So what this will be is there'll be 2 cohorts, cohort 1 and cohort 2. And the coaches should sign up for the 4-day experience, and the administrators would sign up for 2 days. We wanted to give you this information now so that you can budget for your budgeting purposes. So it is $250 for a coach, $125 for an administrator. If they participated in the book study this winter, they'll get a code and it will be $30 less because they won't need the book. And I think that is it. If anybody has any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Carrie. Great. We wanted to give you just a quick update on dyslexia and where we are as at Wayne Risa in terms of helping districts address the new legislation and those pieces. I need to go ahead and share in the chat a link to this condensed timeline of everything in that bill, just so that you have it, so that you can kind of look at it and see kind of what the expectations are by date. Hopefully that will really help. Also wanted to let you know that there are several work groups in the state right now addressing the legislation and the different pieces. And we're fortunate to have some members of our Wayne Risa team a part of that. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Jones, who will share a little bit more about that.
Hello, I'm Sarah Jones, and I'm one of the literacy consultants at Wayne Risa. If you could please go to the next slide. I have the opportunity to be a part of the work group that is comprised of lots of leaders across the state that are coming together with the purpose of aligning our voices and our concerns and our needs for our districts and schools that we are supporting. So far, as we have come together, we have decided to be broken into 2 subcommittees that will work on a few things at the beginning. One of them would be a crosswalk so that we are able to share with the leaders how that compares to the Read by Grade 3 law, the things that are different, the things that are the same, and what is new in the law that wasn't there before. The second subcommittee group is a timeline checklist group that will kind of give you more information and detailed information than what Michelle just dropped to you all in the link. Because it will also be broken down by the responsibilities for MDE, the responsibilities for districts, leaders, principals, coaches, and teachers, along with the information regarding training and professional learning around dyslexia. Some things that will be coming out soon will be the list of screeners that MDE will provide to us, and we will be able to get that information to you, as well as a list of instructional practices that MDE has identified as being appropriate for the instruction with dyslexia. If you could go to the next slide. And then lastly, this is a really important piece. We know that you all have questions, and we would love to hear your voices. And then also with those questions, I will be able to take these questions back to our larger group to see if I can get some clarity for you on those questions, and then we will be able to bring those answers back to you at your next meeting. So we will put in the chat this form, and whatever questions you might have, please put them there, and we will make sure that we get those answers for you.
I can take this one. Heather Rotterman is our MTSS coordinator. She's also an instruction assessment consultant here at Wayne Risa. She's working in a district today and is unable to attend this meeting, so I'm going to share some of her information for her. Next, please. We're really excited about this. We're partnering with Oakland Schools. That's what the OS stands for. And we're planning an MTSS conference. MTS in action, collaborate, differentiate, and accelerate. We're hearing from a lot of our curriculum leaders. It's time to start refining our systems and our frameworks around MTSS, especially in light of the dyslexia legislation. And what do we do with our secondary spaces? That's been an ongoing conversation. This is a save the date kind of thing. This is still being planned. So if you have any thoughts or ideas, we'd love to hear them, but we think it's going to be a pretty powerful conference, and we would love for you to save the date and consider joining us. This is another thing that Heather has been working on with colleagues. And what we find is we've done a lot of professional learning around MTSS, and another layer of that people find really helpful is to be able to come together around a community of practice in a kind of an informal way to hear what other people are doing, to bring a problem of practice, to hear success stories across what's happening in Wayne County. We would love for you to attend. We know this is something that you're continually working on and refining. The Zoom link is there, the date is there. Just come. That's great formative assessment for us too about, what's happening, where are the success stories, where are some of the challenges that we can help to support around. Next. And then this is work being done by Heather in conjunction with our secondary literacy consultants, responsive assessment network. We know assessing students, especially in the secondary realm, how do we do that in a humanizing way so that it's used to the benefit of learning with alongside students and doesn't feel like a punishment? How do we use that street data to recognize students' assets and how best to support them building on those assets? This is another thing you're welcome to come into and join and be part of the conversation. We're certainly happy for your participation and attention to this too. Next.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharon Ramsey. I'm a mathematics consultant here at Wayne RESA. And I just wanted to take a quick moment to share an opportunity with you all. This is our Leading to Liberate conference. This is a collaboration with Oakland Schools and Washtenaw ISD. The idea of this is to really get leaders together and just have some conversation and engage in just impactful discussions about how we really transform environments for students, for all students, to see themselves in what they're learning and how they're learning. This particular conference, again, is our leadership conference. So it's not specific towards math, even though we will have a couple of math sessions, but we have a dynamic lineup of speakers. This is a free event. It will be held on March 20th from 8 to 3:30. Breakfast is included, lunch is included, and there will be some nice little giveaways for you. So if you are available, this is something that you don't want to miss. It is a dynamic opportunity, and we would just love to have you come share with us. So the links will be in the chat. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
And take this piece. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Judy Bowling was unable to be with us today, but we did want to pass on this message about the Maker STEM Summit. As you know, last week brought some rather chilly weather and a snowstorm. So the Maker STEM Summit is rescheduled for Tuesday, May 6th. If you have not registered yet, or you would like to come and May works better for your schedule, we'd love to have you register now to be a part of that. And if you did register for the original date and it doesn't work, you can update that registration as well. So the new date, May 6th. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm John Ferris, the social studies consultant. If we can go to the next slide. An event we're really excited about and want to share with you is this summer's Teaching Diverse Histories Summit. The title is Lifting Untold Stories, Pedagogies, and Practices for a People's History of Wayne County. We're doing this in partnership with Westwood Schools. We were awarded a 99D Teaching Diverse Histories grant to put on this two-day summit. And the concept behind it is very often when social studies or other teachers go to an event designed around teaching about race or teaching diverse histories and so on, you often just get more content, more historical content. But the question that teachers come away with is, what am I supposed to do with that? What does it look like in the classroom? And so this conference is going to be focused on pedagogy and practice so that teachers are able to lift those untold stories in their classrooms and engage in inquiry with cultural competency. And we're going to focus on place-based history as well. Day one is going to be your standard kind of conference with a keynote speaker and breakout sessions. Our keynote speaker is Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries, who's the host of the Teaching Hard History podcast and was involved in the Teaching Hard History project. And then day two is going to consist of an opening session, and then teachers will fan out to different locations around Wayne County where they'll engage in place-based programming that they can choose from. Registration is open. You can click now to go to that link to sign up. Also, we welcome proposals for the day one breakout sessions, 1 hour sessions. There will be compensation of $750 to the presenter or presenter team that presents for those sessions. Our next slide. And I also want to invite all social studies teachers, coaches, administrators to our next Wayne County Social Studies Leaders Meeting. In the past, we've held those meetings at Wayne RISA. This year, we made a change and decided to hold these meetings at cultural institutions around the area so that teachers have a chance to engage with those institutions, and those institutions get to share some information, lead an activity, and talk about using their resources or field trips. Our first one was held at the Henry Ford, and it was a big success. We had twice as many people as we normally have. And our next one is going to be at the Arab American Museum a week from Friday on February 28th from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock. The session is free. Participants will be awarded 3 sketch credits, and they can register at that link.
And this takes us to the end of our February updates. This has been our February update meeting. We're glad that you were able to attend. Please remember that the monthly report is linked in the slide deck. You have access to all of the slides and all of the links. As always, let us know how we can best support you. Have a great afternoon.
Mary, can I interrupt? I got a response from Tina regarding the material order shipments. If you do check your material order in OEAA and the date is during spring break, you'll get a tracking order number, and it will tell you when it's going to start shipping. Tina Foote did say it's too late to change that date. So once you check your material order, look for that tracking shipping number. You can get in contact with the shipper and try to delay shipment, or you can track the shipment and have someone at the school the day of shipping just to receive the shipment that day. But she said it is too late to change the date of shipping.
Okay, thank you. I'll let my special ed director know.
Okay, thank you. And for anyone else, please check your material order for the shipping date. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Cindy, for following up on that so quickly. We appreciate you. Have a great afternoon, everybody.